Welcome to Drunk Dog Creative. Today is a Stashbuster tutorial. We've all been there where we have a whole stash of designer series paper that we haven't used up and we're not sure what to do with it. Well, today I'm going to show you how to easily make gift bags using your designer series paper. This is such a great way to bust that stash. I'll show you a couple examples that I've made. This one is a tall, thin one using 12 by 12 paper. This one I cut the paper to 9 by 12 with a wider bottom, and this was 6 by 12 with a narrower bottom, and I'll explain all that in a minute. But these just give you some ideas. They fold flat, just like normal gift bags. I just haven't put the handles on them yet, but I wanted to show you kind of what they could look like. So let's get started on how to make one. You only need a few simple tools. You need a piece of paper, you need some ribbon or twine or whatever you want for the handles. You need a hole punch, and you need some Stamp and Seal or whatever adhesive you like. And the most important thing is your bone folder. You really need a bone folder for this project. I am going to use my Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer to do the whole thing, including scoring lines. So it has two blades on it. One's a cutting blade, one's a scoring blade, and it makes it really useful for this kind of project. I am going to cut my paper at 8 inches. So you want it one side to be 12 inches and the other side whatever length you want for whatever size bag you want. And I'll talk about how to adjust sizes at the end. If your paper has a direction of the pattern, be careful which way you cut it. So I'm cutting this at 8 inches. And then I'm going to add some score lines with the scorer. The first line I want is 1 inch at the top. And if you can see on my paper trimmer, your 0 line is the cut line, 1 to 17 that way, and 1 to 2 inches that way, or 4 centimeters that way. For this, I want to score 1 inch here, and it's just as easy to align it to the right as to the left. So 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. I'm just going to go up and back with the score line, and that will form the first fold. The next thing I want to do is to go at 3 inches from the left of the paper. So I'm going to put a score at 3 inches, and I'm going to turn it around and do a score at 3¼ inches on the other side so that when I fold them, they overlap a little bit. And then I'm going to find where my first 1 inch fold was, and I'm going to put a 2 inch seam, wait a minute, so a 2 inch seam at the bottom. So 2 inch score line at the bottom. So that's it, 4 score lines. And you can put your paper trimmer away. This is my favorite paper trimmer of all the ones I've used. It's so versatile, I love it. So now you take your paper and you find where that 1 inch or 2.5 centimeter score line is, and you're going to fold it back, and that creates a detail trim at the top. And this is where you get your bone folder out now, and you crease that. Your bone folder is your best friend for making these gift bags. You crease it, and then you fold each of the side folds, and you crease that. And they should overlap by just a little bit, about 1/4 inch. So you're gonna, now you don't have to measure either. You can just fold without scoring and eyeball it. It won't matter, that's totally fine. Now I'm gonna unfold it, and I'm going to take my Stamp and Seal, or whatever adhesive you use, and just put a little bit near that 1 inch fold so that when I fold it over, it's stuck at the ends. And then I'm going to decide which way I want to overlap this. And I'm just going to run a strip of adhesive right down the edge. Make sure that got all the way to the bottom. And I'm going to seal that. So that part's all sealed. So now what you've got is like a tube, right? Then you've got this 2 inch score at the bottom, or 5 centimeter. You're going to fold it all up in one direction and use your bone folder to crease it. sure it's creased well. Now this is the slightly tricky part. You're going to want to open it right from the middle like this, because you want to fold these down, and you want to start at the point, and you can use the point of your bone folder to get that right. So you want to start at the point, and just do it with your hands to start with to make sure it's even. And push that out so that it's flat. Yeah. So, and again, starting from that outside, and you can see that that's not straight, so I need to adjust that a little bit. So you want those lines to be kind of straight, if possible. You just adjust it until they are, and then you use your bone folder again to just make it a sharp crease. So you see, you open it and then fold it. Then what you're going to do is fold this flap so that it touches, so that it lines up with the middle. And again, bone folder. And this one, so that it lines up with that middle, but just slightly overlaps, just very slightly. Doesn't have to be very much. And again, bone folder. And then what I do is I run a little bit of tape down each edge, and I put the top down so that it sticks to there, but not to the inside. And then I put a little bit of tape there, and I bring the bottom edge up so that it sticks to it. And then any tape that's exposed, you either use a glue eraser or your fingers and just rub it away so that it doesn't catch on anything. It's really easy to just rub away any excess. All right, so that part makes the bottom, right? So then how do we get the sides? Well, that's easier, like really easy. So a little bit of glue there. You're gonna fold this so that this edge here and that edge, I don't know if you can see it, that edge right there and this edge meet. So just with your fingers, and this is where it starts to get a little stiff with the paper because of a lot of layers. But if you fold that so that those two edges there meet, and then you just try to get that line straight. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. When you're happy with it, I'm finding it a bit harder too because I hurt my thumb the other day. Then use your bone folder again to sharpen that crease, and do the same thing on the other side. This outside line with this line, you want to bring them together and bring that through the whole line. Once you've done that, you open it up. You open up this part, you reach in, make sure that's glued, pop that down, pop this all out, and then this score, you simply fold inwards instead of outwards, and the same with the other side. Push it inwards instead of outwards. Okay. And then you've got your flat folded bag, and you can just score a little bit, rub it a little bit more with your bone folder. And then it opens to make a bag. Now, what you also want to do is put some handles on it. So I've got some ribbon that was in my stash that's been discontinued that I want to use, and I thought it went really well with the coloring. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to punch 2 holes for the handles through each side. If your hole puncher will go through all 4 layers, do that. If not, just try and line them up 2 at a time, front and back. And this I usually just eyeball. Try to get them even, but, as it sticks. This is a very old hole puncher. So I've got my little 4 holes in there, and I'm going to take some string and I'm just going to fold this, sharpen that edge off a bit because it's a bit frayed with my snips. I'm going to just thread it through, and you can thread this through any way you want. Some people go all the way through and then all the way back. Some people tie a little knot so that they're each separate. It's whatever you want to do. I am going to tie a little knot so that it stays in. This is my preferred way of doing the handles, as long as the knot is bigger than the hole and doesn't pull through. And then I'm gonna, what I would normally do is do a handle that is almost as long as the bag, because by the time you add the knot, it'll be a little bit shorter. And I just snip that, thread that through, tie a knot in the end, and that's one handle. And there I have a little gift bag that looks, that's the back with the seam, that looks beautiful. So there you go. Now the other thing you can do is get out some of your stamps and punches or dies and actually decorate this part. And I'll show you an example at the end. Now the sizing. If you want a bag that is shorter, cut your paper shorter. You always want the width to be 12 inches. If you want more depth, you want it wider. Like you can see the difference in the width. This was a 2-inch bottom score. This was a 3-inch bottom score. So the bigger you make the bottom, the wider the bottom of the bag will be. You can see that there's about a 1/2 inch difference for the 1-inch difference in score line. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. This one was a 12-inch by 12-inch piece of paper. So it makes a tall, thin gift bag. This one was 6-inch with the 2-inch bottom. That was 8 inches with the 2-inch bottom. So 8-inch, 6-inch, you can see the size difference. The sides are almost the same. This was the wider bottom, but it was a 9-inch cut. So that makes it taller and wider. I'll put them down flat. Don't know if you can see that, the difference. It's about a finger. So if you want to play with the size, you play with both where you cut the paper and where you put the bottom fold. So I'm back after embellishing the bag a little bit. I often use scraps of paper to make different flowers and just stash them in a container for when I need 1 or 2 to pull out. And I used a Stampin' Up! Glue dot to attach it. And then the sentiment is from a new set we have called the Perennial Postage Bundle, which is also included in the Lavender Suite, which I love. And it's a bunch of sentiments, and then it's a bunch of dies that cut postage stamp themed shapes. You have, 2 fairly big ones, and then square ones, rectangles, some little tabs, a little postage sign. And so I cut and layered a balmy blue and white thick, and I stamped it with Night of Navy, and I did smudge it after I stamped it, but I wanted to get the video out, so please forgive me. But there is your foldable gift bag with embellishments on it, and there's all sorts of things you can do. All right, I have one more thing to show you. I have bought the beautiful Lavender Suite that just got released from Stampin' Up! In the mini catalog that runs from January to March. And one of the sets of stamps and dies is the painted lavender. The other set is the postage stamp one that I already showed you that comes in the suite, and the amazing papers that comes with it and little gems and things. So when I get a stamp and die set, I take an adhesive magnet sheet and stick it in with the stamps so that the set stays together. I didn't stamp anything with this. I just die cut these pieces from these 2 dies and that die. So these 3 dies, I die cut in Lost Lagoon, Gorgeous Grape, and Highland Heather. And I'm going to make a little bouquet of flowers to decorate this bag. Now, I made this bag with some of the paper that comes in the suite. So I cut it 6 by 12 inches. So this is a little bit shorter than this one, and it's a little bit wider or narrower. I made the bottom 1 3/4 instead of 2 inches, and this gives me a perfect little bag for jewelry or whatnot. And I want to do something a little different on the front. I also used some twine that I had for the handles instead of ribbon. And I'm going to use some linen twine from Stampin' Up! To tie these together. But I'm going to give you a tip. When you've got lots of little bits and pieces and you're trying to make them into an arrangement of some sort, I often will use a piece of paper, although granted for this one I'm using a tiny piece, and I will just layer some glue tape on it, even though it's little. And when that doesn't, and I'm going to use some hot glue with this one in a minute, but what I do is I start to layer my pieces. So I want this to look kind of like a bouquet. And hopefully if I do this right, you won't actually see the paper behind it. So I want to do like sprigs of that. And this is why I'm going to use hot glue for this one, because I really need to work quickly, but I need to layer up. Remember, don't touch hot glue with your hands. Just use something else to stick things down. The problem with the hot glue is it sets super fast, so you have to work really fast. Which is why I would normally use adhesive tape. Oh, this is fun. So I kind of got that. Then I'm going to put the longer bits in, which I cut in the Gorgeous Grape. Had another one of those somewhere. All right, and then I'm going to add the shorter pieces, just another tiny dot of glue. I'm just gonna let the glue set for a minute, and when it dries, you can just take it off your whatever you've just used. I'm gonna unwind this. And I'm gonna kind of crush some of this a little bit. I'm gonna leave some for a bow. So I'm gonna just wind around here so that it looks like a bundle of flowers with a bow on it. Actually tie it into a bow. Which I admit I'm not very good at. But I think for this rustic look, it'll be okay. And then I'm going to trim away some of that bit that shows of that backing. Don't worry, that's going to be tucked behind something. So that's sort of like a little garnish to put on here. But I'm going to do something else. I have actually stamped and cut a little postage stamp that says Big Hugs. So I've used crumb cake cardstock with Gorgeous Grape ink. And I was going to put it in front of the flowers, but I decided that now that I've snipped that bit away, it actually does still look good. And I think it would be better to actually have it on there with the bow tilted sideways. So instead, I'm going to put a tiny bit of hot glue, or you can use a glue dot or whatever adhesive you like. And I'm going to just put that oops, in the corner there. Scrape a little of that away. Have the bow kind of going that way. And I'm gonna affix this with tape onto the bag so that it's at an angle like that. So again, this is where the bag folding flat really helps. I'm gonna fold it flat. I'm gonna turn this over and use my Stampin' Seal or any strong adhesive. And then I'm just gonna position it on here. However, I think it should be, remembering to keep above the bottom. And that can fan out like that. And then you open it up, and then you've got a lovely gift bag with embellishment on it.